massive force arrives. Mission, counter-narcotics, calculated ambiguity, high-stakes miscalculation.
Okay, so today we're diving into the Caribbean, where a massive U.S. naval deployment has put an entire nation on, well, basically a war footing. Let's break down how things got so heated so fast. Right off the bat, let's talk about the stakes here. This quote from a Venezuelan official, this isn't just diplomatic fluff. This is the kind of language you use when you're genuinely preparing for a fight. And, these aren't just words. They are being backed up with some serious action. Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, has ordered what he's calling a massive mobilization of the entire military. They're getting ready to counter what they see as a very real, very direct threat. So what could possibly spark this kind of reaction? Well, the catalyst for this whole crisis is the arrival of one of the most powerful warships on the planet. We're talking about the USS Gerald Ford, and it just entered the operational area of the U.S. Southern Command. Now, this is a huge territory that covers most of Latin America, and it puts this carrier group right on Venezuela's doorstep. To really get the scale of this, you have to understand, the Gerald Ford isn't just any ship. It is the largest, most technologically advanced aircraft carrier in the entire U.S. Navy. It's carrying 9 air squadrons, and it's joining a U.S. military presence in the region that was already pretty big to begin with. Which, it raises a pretty critical question, right? Why on earth would you deploy your absolute best, most advanced naval asset to the Caribbean? Let's take a look at the official story coming out of the U.S. The official mission is, well, pretty simple on its face: counter-narcotics. The administration is insisting that this incredible naval force is there to target alleged drug boats. And this is where we get to the core of the tension. It's this massive contradiction. The tool for the job is the world's most sophisticated supercarrier, and the stated target? Small boats. The mismatch is, well, it's pretty dramatic. And hey, this isn't just coming from outside observers. This confusion exists right inside Washington. Apparently, U.S. officials couldn't even give Congress a straight answer on why this level of firepower was needed. So that raises the big question. If it's not just about drugs, what else could it be? And that question brings us directly to Venezuela's greatest fear. It's what the government in Caracas sees as the true, hidden objective behind this whole military buildup: regime change. Just so we're all on the same page, when we say regime change, we're talking about the forcible or coerced replacement of one government with another. It's basically the ultimate intervention into another country's business. Now, Venezuela's suspicion isn't coming out of thin air. Officials there are calling the U.S. presence an imperialist threat. And that's being fueled by reports that some folks in the Trump administration were actually pushing for military strikes to force President Maduro out. You combine that with some of President Trump's own threatening language, and you get a really potent mix of fear and deep mistrust. So we have two completely different stories here: a counter-narcotics mission on one hand and a potential regime change operation on the other. To try and make sense of this, let's turn to a military analyst to help us decode what's really going on. Retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton calls this whole situation a gray zone. What he means by that is that the number of U.S. forces out there doesn't really fit neatly into any standard military playbook. It's sort of ambiguously stuck somewhere between peace and all-out war. This gray zone idea kind of breaks down like this. If your only mission is drug interdiction, the force is, in his own words, way more than what you need. But if you're planning a full-scale invasion to topple the government, it's actually not quite enough. So if it's too much for one mission but not enough for another, what's the real strategy? Well, the analyst concludes that the U.S. is probably using its overwhelming military presence as a form of high-stakes intimidation, a kind of modern-day gunboat diplomacy, really. It's all designed to force change without ever having to fire a single shot. But man, that is a high-stakes strategy. It's a game of chicken that relies entirely on the other side backing down. So what happens if there's a miscalculation? What are the potential consequences if this thing goes wrong? An open conflict, according to Colonel Leighton, would be a real mess. You have to remember, the current government has been in power for decades. It still commands a lot of institutional loyalty, and it has powerful friends like Russia and Cuba. Any invasion could easily turn into a long, drawn-out guerrilla war and would be a total diplomatic disaster across Latin America, a region with a very long memory of U.S. interventions. And that leads us to the analyst's starkest warning. He said a war with Venezuela could make Vietnam potentially look like not quite a picnic. Coming from a veteran military officer, that comparison is absolutely chilling. So, this leaves us with a fundamental dilemma here. The entire situation in the Caribbean is balanced on a knife's edge, just caught between this intense pressure campaign and the brink of actual war. And it really begs the critical question, how do you pressure a nation without pushing it right over the edge?
That's the latest from Diversity News. If you found this report insightful, like the video, subscribe right now, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the issues that matter.